Hello, my name is Ishaan,
Hello, my name is Pallavi, and
and
welcome
welcome
to
to
Politics
Politics
Corner.
Corner, your crash course in modern day politics on the international, national, and local stages.
Here, we pride ourselves on a moderate and unbiased approach to politics, regardless of our political affiliations, and we hope to encourage our fellow Californians to learn and care about their government.
Today is actually a bonus episode. We'll be releasing our regular on Monday, and today we are discussing the Kyle Rittenhouse case, start to finish, right after this. Welcome back, folks, and welcome to the first segment of this bonus episode of Politics Corner. Today we are covering the Kyle Rittenhouse case start to finish, but before I say that, I'm going to let Pallavi go over what happened, just kind of an overview.
Okay, well, let's go back to what happened before the shooting. Now, the timeline is about a year ago. Wisconsin teen Kyle Rittenhouse is 17, and he took a gun for self-defense. He was a trained lifeguard at the Kenosha BLM riot protest for medical assistance, and to protect a car dealership because one was burned down the day prior, he took a gun because of the previous riots to protect himself.
Right. And there's a lot of misinformation going on about this case. So, just to clarify, I want to provide you with a precise chronology of the night, which is verified by witness testimony, video footage, etc. This is not misinformation. This is all objective and verifiable. So, first of all, Jacob Blake, a black man, was shot by a police officer for resisting arrest, prompting protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Those protests turned to violent riots, which set businesses on fire. That next day, Kyle Rittenhouse and his friends decided to see how they could, and I quote, help their community. But you know what? Why don't I let him tell you?
We say the night August. I say the night August 24th. We wake up in the morning and we're talking. We're like, let's go help our community. Let's go see what we can do. And we ended up at Ruther Central High School where we were cleaning graffiti for a couple hours, and then we met with the owners of car stores and we offered to protect their business from fires, making sure the rest of their other two properties didn't get burned down like they did the night prior, and they agreed. We came back. We went back to Dominic's house and hung out there for a little bit, and then we went to car stores to help protect the property and make sure it didn't set on fire again.
All right. So after they went out and decided to help protect that business, which, by the way, it's insane that the city was in such a state of shambles that business owners were willing to turn to a 17-year-old just to protect their property. But Joseph Rosenbaum, one of his victims, appears for the first time where Kyle is standing guard in front of parking lot number 2. And he says, and I quote, "If I catch any of you MFers alone, I'm going to effing kill you." About 1.5 hours later, he appears again, this time saying, "I'm going to cut your hearts out, you effing N-worders."
Rosenbaum violently attempts to disarm Kyle, and then Kyle hears gunshots behind him. So Kyle shoots at Rosenbaum. Kyle ran around the parking lot to try to administer first aid to Rosenbaum, and then he hears a mob calling for Kyle's execution, and that forms around him and prevents him from doing so. Kyle tried to run to the nearby police line.
So Kyle was running down the street trying to run to the nearby police line, but then a protected individual, we don't actually know his identity, it's not public information. He was dubbed Jump Kick Man because he literally jumped up and kicked Kyle to the ground before Anthony Hubert, who would later become another one of Kyle's quote-unquote victims, and another unidentified male, strike Kyle to the ground with a skateboard and rock, respectively.
And then Jump Kick Man tried to beat Kyle again, and so Kyle fired at the Jump Kick Man. Anthony Hubert at this point strikes Kyle with his skateboard again, and this time in the back of his head.
That's right. And then Gage Grossroots charged at Kyle with an armed gun, ready to shoot. Kyle fired and hit Grossroots in the arm. So then Kyle gets up brandishing his rifle, kind of just pointing it around so protesters back off. And then he tries to run to the police line, still hearing shots behind him, but not really sure where they're coming from.
Yeah, and finally Kyle finds two police officers. One pepper sprays Kyle, and then Kyle says, "I just had to shoot someone." And the officer, too, says, go home.
Yeah. And then Kyle finds the friends that he came with, and he was actually having kind of a nervous breakdown. He talked in an interview about how he was vomiting, hyperventilating, and he wanted to turn himself into the Kenosha police right where they were, except the Kenosha Police Department was closed to visitors because of the riots. So instead, he drove to Antioch, where he turned himself in.
What did your parents say when you called them and told them what had happened?
I didn't call my mom after I saw her, and she was in shock. She was like, she wanted to go into hiding, and I said, no, the right thing to do would be to turn myself in. I didn't do anything wrong.
So you knew that from the very beginning?
I knew that. A lot of people are like, oh, Kyle had time to meet with his attorneys to come up with this amazing defense of self-defense. No, that's not the case. This has been 100% self-defense from the beginning, and I didn't know there was 100 cameras. I knew but I did know I was attacked, and I defended myself.
What do you think would have happened to you if there hadn't been the amount of video that there is?
I can't even imagine. I don't think we'd be sitting here right now having this talk, Tucker.
That's for sure. You'd never get out.
Kind of.
Yeah, so let's just go over the misconceptions on this, right? So Kyle Rittenhouse was not a racist. He was at the protest to defend a local business because he was afraid of the looting that had previously happened. He was not a very political person, even though some news outlets are saying he was radicalized by Trumpism. I mean, that's just unfortunate because, again, it's a gross mistruth.
It is. Another thing, Kyle Rittenhouse did not cross state lines. Apparently, I don't even know who started this, but someone said he crossed state lines with a gun, and then it kind of turned into this game of, we call it footnote copy paste, where basically you just take something said by a source that you generally trust, and then you copy paste it into your own, just spreading the lie. And honestly, I have a hypothesis for how it came about. So Kenosha and Antioch are both in Wisconsin. Any normal person knows that, but I have a feeling that it was some really dumb leftist journalist who was just like, Kenosha and Antioch, that's in another state, right? And he just wrote it down, and then other people were like, oh, he crossed state lines.
Yeah, but again, Kyle did not own a gun. It was a friend who brought the gun and lent it to Kyle. He was not the first person who was armed. And remember, Kyle was not the first person to fire that night.
Yeah, and one more fact that I would be remiss not to bring up, but it shouldn't be included in the trial. It shouldn't affect the trial. Joseph Rosenbaum, the most famous of Kyle victims, he was not exactly a saint, despite how people are kind of making him. He was a convicted pedophile who recurrently anally raped children. Now, that should not change the course of the trial, but again, it would be remiss to not even mention it.
I agree. I mean, I agree that even if Kyle was wrong in this case, that wouldn't necessarily impact it. I mean, I think the most important thing here is that Kyle didn't do anything wrong, and he was, by all accounts, a good kid.
Right, and even despite that, the media took after him like a storm, just trashing him. This is, I don't like calling out parties here, but this is leftist propaganda. I can't believe the amount of misinformation that has been strewn about this. I don't know what to say.
I agree. I mean, what makes me really sad is this is a 17-year-old kid who was trying to do, just be part of his community, and it just got skewed way out of proportion. All right, in the next segment, we're going to discuss the trial itself, so please stay tuned.
All right, guys, welcome back. Today we are discussing all about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, start to finish. We just went over the actual events of the night. Next up, we are going to talk about the trial and the verdict. So first of all, why don't we go over the merits of the case? What do you think, Pallavi?
Fine. Yeah. Well, I mean, as I've said before, this was self-defense, and it's an overly politicized case.
Yeah, I've held this hypothesis for a while, but despite a lot of controversy on social media, as someone who follows me might know, I have a feeling like the prosecution was under pressure by the government, or the public at least, just to put somebody behind bars for the unrest, for optics. We need someone to blame, so I can see kind of from the top down the entire DA just kind of being under pressure. Get someone behind bars. Anyone.
Yeah, and I don't think it was a great prosecution team. The prosecution witness actually affirmed self-defense story on the stand. Let's have a listen.
A witness named Ryan Balch, and he was called by the prosecution. This guy was not called by the defense. And Ryan Balch says in open testimony that Rosenbaum had said earlier that if he caught Rittenhouse alone, he would kill him. Okay, that's not, the prosecutors called this guy. This is their case? The prosecutors? Here we go.
When I turned around, Rosenbaum was right there in front of my face, yelling and screaming. And I said, dude, back up. Just chill. I don't know what your problem is. And he goes, you know what? If I catch any of you guys alone tonight, I'm going to kill you.
And he said that to you?
Correct.
Did he say that to the defendant as well?
The defendant was there, so yes.
That's the prosecutor's witness. Whoops. That's not good.
That is not good. So like Ben just said right there, that was not a defense witness. That was the prosecutor's witness intended to prove their point. And he sort of just, the questions that he was asked, did they even brief him? Did they even prep him? Did they even like vet him at all? They're just like, yeah, I'm sure we can squeeze something out of him. And there you go. Prosecutor Binger is just caught off guard. Also, they tried to make a negative invocation for, a negative inference for Kyle invoking the Fifth.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the Fifth Amendment is basically the right to stay silent when arrested. And by the way, that's not allowed to use as an evidence of guilt in court. That's just a right that the person getting arrested has.
Yeah, exactly. I and a lot of other people actually have felt like the prosecution was probably trying to provoke a mistrial. And the defense actually called this out at one point. I don't know if that's in the clip that we're about to play, but I think that they were trying to provoke a mistrial because they knew that they could not win, at least not with the evidence that had been set forth. So maybe they were trying to get a different judge, different jury. I don't know. But I told you, they basically violated basic law by trying to make a negative inference from invocation of the Fifth. And also, they refused the judge's orders and began speaking about evidence that had explicitly been excluded by the judge.
Yeah, I clearly feel like after looking at this case, this is one case that should not have gone to trial. There was just not enough evidence against Kyle. And going back to your point about excluded evidence, that's basically evidence which the judge has ordered to be excluded from the trial to avoid extraneous prejudice. For example, Joseph Rosenbaum's criminal history was also excluded to avoid prejudice.
Right. It's basically information that's not relevant to the trial. I believe the litmus test is actually when the prejudicial value exceeds the evidentiary value. And that's what the judge weighed. He said, no, this is far too prejudicial. It's unnecessary. This should not be brought up. And they still tried to bring it up, and it wasn't even relevant to their case. They were just mentioning it fleetingly, which makes me think, really, they were trying to provoke a mistrial. But really, shout out to Judge Schroeder, who is getting a lot of hate right now, which we'll talk about later. But he's getting a lot of hate, and he definitely should not, because he was a very fair, apolitical judge. Absolutely, thank you. I applaud you, Judge Schroeder from Wisconsin. Listen to him absolutely just, putting the prosecutors in a timeout.
He knows if you're going to go into something that's been excluded in a pretrial order, you better ask the court, you better get permission.
That's the defense attorney.
This is ridiculous. I asked the court to strongly admonish him, and the next time it happens, I'll be asking for a mistrial with prejudice.
Just hours ago, I said I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the defense testimony.
Don't get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're up to.
Well, I don't know about Judge Schroeder, but I do know what he was up to. He was trying to provoke a mistrial.
Oh, you mean the prosecutor?
Yes. What? Why else?
Yeah, well, I mean, he was going to be tried for illegal possession. It
As you
wasn't his
know.
gun, and he used the wrong law. I mean, the law they used only applied to short-barreled guns.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, not a great prosecution.
I think that
Oh.
the fact that this was in Wisconsin and the judge was so fair is definitely something that worked in favor of Kyle. I mean, just the fairness of the judge. If this
Yeah.
was in a place where, there was a lot more racial tensions and there was a lot of prejudice against this, 17-year-old kid, I don't know if the verdict would have been so just and so fair.
Well, I mean, I actually think it's the opposite. I think that that's really a testament to how little evidence there was because the jury was from Wisconsin. They wanted someone to blame. The judge was from Wisconsin, likely wanted someone to blame too. It's like he won this case despite all of the odds being stacked against him.
And simply because it was just, a case that should have never gone to trial. This was a kid who was just innocent, and he was just dealing with the circumstances as they were dealt.
Yeah. I mean, all right, I guess we already kind of revealed it by saying he won this case, which most of you probably knew by now. But after 3 days of deliberation, the jury acquitted him and declared him not guilty on all counts.
As they should have.
Yeah, as they should. That said, that does not change the absolutely atrocious reporting of his case by the media, which we will discuss right after this. See you soon. All right, guys, welcome back. Today, we are discussing all about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, start to finish. This is our last segment for today, the social effects of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. First of all, I cannot go without mentioning how outrageously incorrect, misleading, just outright lies that the media kind of trashed this poor kid, right?
I mean, the insensitivity was just amazing. I just cannot believe that people can be so, harsh and unfair. There was the...
No, not just unfair. Not just unfair. It's like outright lies at this point. Journalism is just a state of what can I make people believe at this point.
Precisely. I mean, LeBron James' tweet, when recounting the moments leading up to the shooting, when Kyle was being chased, Kyle broke down in court, uncontrollably crying until the judge called a recess.
Right. And I want to say something about this because I have actually watched this video. I say this every episode. I wish I could show it, but it's a podcast. You can actually see it in his voice. There's tears running down his face. He's hyperventilating on the stand. He was having like a post-traumatic stress reaction on the stand while recounting the moments where he thought he was going to die. And LeBron James just tweeted absolutely insensitively.
What tears? I didn't see one. Man, knock it off. The boy ate some lemon heads before walking into court. I mean, come on.
If I had any respect for LeBron James before this, it's gone. Sorry to any basketball fans, but I'm sorry. I cannot support someone like this.
You have to be a human first.
Yeah, I have to be a human first before I can be a basketball fan.
Wow.
And I'm not that into sports, so maybe it's easier for me, but I think anyone who would see that should at least be a little bit outraged. But he was not the only one. Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, literally made a statement saying, and I quote, "The verdict really speaks for itself. As many of you know, I spent a majority of my career working to make the justice system more equitable. And clearly, there's a lot more work to do." Now, I'm going to pause.
To be honest here, I mean, I'd like to believe the best of Kamala Harris. So I think what she's saying here is that this should never have gone to trial.
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't give her credit for this. I am pretty sure she checked CNN one day, or maybe her publisher did, and she came out, she just said something that she didn't even know the facts about. That's what I think, honestly. I mean, and
Joe
also,
Biden's
I
statement.
want to address something.
Okay.
She just said, "I spent a majority of my career working to make the justice system more equitable." What? Kamala Harris, tell me one thing you did to make the justice system more equitable. I have studied your political career. There is not a single thing you've done involving the justice system besides your speeches.
Well, Joe Biden's statement, he called him a white supremacist almost a year ago. And then he stated recently, while the verdict in Kenosha will leave many Americans feeling angry and concerned, myself included, we must acknowledge that the jury has spoken. It's insane. I mean, it's like, Mr. President, Mrs. Vice President, have you guys not read the facts of this case?
Well, actually, he didn't. And originally he said, I have not read the trial, so I don't have an opinion. And before tweeting what you just said, feeling very angry and concerned, myself included. Okay, hold on. Yourself included. I thought you just said you haven't seen the trial, you don't know the facts, so you don't have an opinion, and then you're saying myself included. Oh, I get it. You were told to say myself included because that's what your party believes. This is politics in every single instance of a individual case. And I really don't want to live in a world where politics are so deeply intertwined with the judicial system. I want to believe that there is more sense to our government than that. But Kyle Rittenhouse did respond to Joe Biden. Basically what he said, very sweet. I watched the video. It was also a little bit saddening. He basically said, please go through the facts of the case and reevaluate if I'm a white supremacist, before basically guaranteeing if you watch the trial, you'd know you're mistaken. So that's what tells me he didn't watch the trial, because to anyone, we've shown you the clips of the trial itself. To anyone who looked even at like the first 15 minutes of the trial itself and didn't go to like one of these secondary, tertiary sources like CNN, you wouldn't even have a doubt in your mind about what happened.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, social injustices throughout the case, throughout America, can be seen, right? Lieutenant William Kelly.
Right, Lieutenant William Kelly. Back when Kyle was first arrested, he donated $25 to his legal fund through an anonymous site called GiveSendGo. It's a Christian donor site. The site was hacked, and The Guardian leaked the list of donors.
And then what happened? Lieutenant Kelly was fired by Police Chief Larry Boone, a staunch BLM activist.
Right.
Let's hear it.
So just like everybody else in America, I watched the videos that showed the shooting. I watched the videos that showed Kyle Rittenhouse's interactions with the journalist beforehand. And I thought it was a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense, just like a lot of people. And when he was indicted for murder and for the malicious wounding, I couldn't believe it. I started thinking about why that might have happened, and all I could think of was pressure from the public, social pressure. So I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Rittenhouse had the means to make his claim in court to a jury. So I chose to give him the $25 donation, and he seemed like he was there for all the right reasons. It's like his heart was in the right place. You might be able to argue that it was unwise for a 17-year-old to do that, but he seemed like a legitimately good person who was there for the right reasons. So I gave him some comments of encouragement, and I thought nothing else of it. I'm getting ready for work one day, and a fellow police officer called my cell phone and said that they started getting phone calls from different people who were critical of my decision to donate, and he just wanted to give me a heads up. So I called my boss, I told him what was going on, and he was like, okay, no big deal, just come to the office, write a letter of explanation, So I didn't think it was gonna be a big deal. But then as the day progressed, it became clear that they were starting to feel the pressure from the social media tweets and the emails and the phone calls. And by the end of the day, I started thinking, there's no way they're gonna discipline me for this, right? And I come to work that Monday and I'm fired.
Absolutely terrible. Now I will say that at the time of recording this, he has received over $200,000 in donations, and he's pursuing legal action against the department, asking to be reinstated, as he should.
Completely agree. I mean, it's a sad state in America when you cannot donate to a cause you believe in, especially since this isn't one of those causes which is, so staunchly wrong. I completely understand if somebody decided to donate to something like a white supremacist organization or KKK. This is for the defense of a 17-year-old, and you shouldn't be getting fired for that.
Well, okay, and this is going to be controversial, but I would still make the argument that even if it was like a white supremacy group, that is protected by the First Amendment. I wouldn't approve of it, like on an individual level, but I don't think that you're allowed to lose your employment over that. He donated anonymously. Like, what the heck? He donated anonymously. It's not like he donated $1,000. He donated $25 anonymously, and yet they said that he was acting as a spokesperson of the city. That's what they told him. That's why you're being fired. You acted as a spokesperson of the city and brought disrepute, and that's a quote, disrepute to the Norfolk Police Department, despite the fact that Larry Boone, the police chief who fired him, showed up to BLM protests in uniform marching.
Yeah, no, I think that, this is just a testimony to the sad state that our country is in. You're not allowed to have a different opinion. You either go with the crowd or you're going to be singled out and you're going to be, fired from your jobs because you dare express something that's against the overall sentiment of the mob.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, Judge Schroeder, the one who we heard just a moment ago, hilariously just absolutely chastising Prosecutor Binger. He's been called out by NBC. I cannot make this up. Headline reads, Judge Schroeder proves in Kyle Rittenhouse case the problem with electing judges.
Yeah, it's just...
What? There's a
that's
problem with it?
Yeah,
I was going to say this is the strength of that.
No. The problem is, if you elect judges like him, they're going to be fair and they're not going to go with mob mentality.
What?
So
what? They're going to be fair?
yeah,
that's not allowed.
And they're not going to just adhere to the mob mentality. So that's a problem.
I mean, it's a good reason that the Supreme Court, for example, they serve for life. And the reason for that is to remove them from politics. They don't have to worry about their rulings, making them reelected, impeached, or, just because the president changes that they're going to get switched out. No. Supreme Court justices serve for life for that reason.
I mean, the sad thing with this whole case, the big thing that I feel is really sad is that it didn't actually spur any real discussion.
It didn't.
All it did is just said, oh my, the people who are against it, most of them haven't even seen the facts of the case. And I think anyone who did, that it would give them a pause and they'd be like, okay, wait a minute. What would I do if I was in this situation? I don't think I would act any differently. Does that make me a white supremacist, or does that just make me somebody who wanted to defend myself from danger?
Yeah, and one thing, I saw this on your Twitter, absolutely hilarious. Kyle Rittenhouse was a white guy who shot white guys to save his white butt. How is that racist?
So true.
I saw posts on Instagram, genuinely laughable. Kyle Rittenhouse verdict spurs concern across America that it is no longer safe to strike people across the head with a skateboard. Yes, that should always.
You might get shot in self-defense.
You might be faced with consequences.
Yeah.
What a wild concept.
Yeah. I mean, in all fairness, I think that this is just a poor kid who was caught, in a bad circumstance at a bad time. But, there was no way he should have been even indicted for murder.
I am, and a lot of conservatives have called this out. I don't know if the extent of what he can do because there is kind of freedom of the press. But a lot of conservatives have actually called on him to say, look, we'll start a fund. You need to go sue every single journalism company that defamed you. You should sue them for defamation and kind of send a message that this is not okay.
Well, if he has the money, he should sue the president, first of all, right? Like,
that would be great.
Like, the words of the president of the United States. Yeah, let me not read the facts of the case. Let me just go and call this poor kid a white supremacist because...
On one hand, I would respect it if at this point he just said, look, I want to fade out of public view. I've had enough. I have been dragged through the mud for this last year, which he has. If he at this point just says, I want to be done with it, I would respect that. But if he is interested in pursuing further justice, I would absolutely support him. I'm only concerned because I don't really know which side the gavel is going to land on. And I don't know how far freedom of the press versus defamation. I don't know which one is going to win.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is I wish this kid the best of luck. I want him to succeed in life, and I hope he can put this episode behind him.
He was a good kid. He was a lifeguard. I said this before. The only thing you could possibly try him for was driving to the protest without a license. That was the only thing. And you want to know what that is punishable by? At least in California, I don't know about the Wisconsin laws. It's punishable by 1 year delay in eligibility for a learner's permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he deserved, not 84 days in jail.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we wish you the best, Kyle, and we are rooting for you and rooting for your success.
We are.
We thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this bonus episode.
If you want to get involved in politics, but you don't know where to start or who to trust, then Politics Corner is great for you. We are a free podcast that gives you bite-sized crash courses in modern-day politics and how government affects you and how to get involved.
We pride ourselves on being unbiased and moderate with our show to generate political involvement.
If you want to hear more from us, follow us on social media or just subscribe. Our next episode will release next Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
I'm Pallavi Sharma.
And I'm Ishaan Prasad.
And thank you for listening to Politics Corner.